could have given up, but you didn't. You could have stopped believing, but you didn't. You could have kept living their expectations, but you decided to make this life your own. And in turn, you're here. Hello, everyone. Today we're meeting Anthony Amunategui. He is the founder of CDO Group, a commercial construction company, and also the host of Future Factory podcast. Hello, Anthony. Thank you for joining us today.
And I thank you for having me on your show. I'm so honored to be on your show. The work you do is amazing. I feel overwhelmed with abundance of love. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. So let's start a conversation with diving into your story of becoming the person you are today. Sure. What led you to discover your true passion in life? How did it start for you?
You know, I think that's an interesting question, right? Oftentimes people ask me, how did you get to where you are in life? And I would tell you, it's never something I ever knew what I wanted to be, right? I always knew that when I grew up, I had a couple ideas, but I think more of what I developed throughout life has been who I don't want to be, right? I think I've really done more of peeling things away throughout life. You know, my feeling of life is that, you know, we all enter this planet very much like I have a dog, right? And her name is Gucci. And when Gucci goes into the woods, she just runs around crazy and she sniffs and plays with everything. And she's just in this discovery mode, right? And Gucci just runs. And I feel like that's how it was for my first early years of life, right? There was pizza and play and all kinds of great discovery. And, you know, you know, there was family and life, and you learn a lot of things. And, you know, my first years were discovery. Now, I got to say that a lot of us, those early years, you know, we're around some people who don't do a great job of training us, right? I mean, some of my background I carried, you know, I have parents who were immigrant parents who were scared and had scarcity mentalities. There wasn't, and my judgment is that a lot of the world, you know, changed in the last 500 years, or actually 300 years. You know, before that, we were very tribal, right? We worked together as groups. We walked in groups together. You had an elder that you worked with. You know, oftentimes we would be at this place where somebody would guide us, right? A good old elder would, hey, you know, maybe I'd be part of a hunting group. Maybe you're part of a women's group. Whatever, you know, we're two different parts of the same tribe, but you had someone who guided you, right? Someone that loved you, that wanted to teach you the ways of survival, and they were with you all the time. Well, the Industrial Revolution comes along, and we've got work and commerce and all the things that have come along in the last amazing couple hundred years. And our parents go to work in factories. Our parents go to work in jobs. They leave us home alone for most of the day. The people who train us don't have time. They come home and they're tired. Well, I'd had those kind of parents, right? They worked their asses off, right? My dad died young. My mother worked 3 jobs, right? There wasn't all this great training that I always wish I had, but the problem is she was trying to survive, right? I mean, they were just literally surviving. So I feel like a lot of what we go through in life is noticing that part of it. And I can kind of notice that a lot of us have kind of a start to life that's a little bit difficult. And then it makes it a little bit more difficult to, you know, the life that we have today is so damn abundant, right?
Right. No, you're right. And again, like it comes back to the childhood, the way we've been raised and what we've been taught through all those early ages. And that's who we become eventually. But the thing is, everything could be changed as long as we are aware of where we're at and what we can take control over. And it comes back to us realizing that we have that power to change where we're going, and that starts with our self-awareness. Don't you agree?
You know, for sure, right? I mean, today, that's a really difficult one in this abundant society that we have. I mean, you know, the other day I went to Costco and I bought, you know, you ever see those big giant muffins they have?
Right.
I got a 6-pack of them, right? And I'm at the cash register, and the lady goes, "No, I'm sorry, sir. You got to buy a 12-pack." I'm like, "I don't really want to." She goes, "No, we only sell them in 12-packs." I'm like, so I need 12 of these ginormous muffins, right? It's kind of an example of my life. I have so much, and paying attention is difficult. I mean, I've got a computer in my hand that can tell me everything I want in the world. I've got TVs in every room that I live in. I've got more food than I ever know what to do with. I got more cars in my driveway than I'm going to drive. The places I can go, the restaurants I can eat at. The world has never had more abundance. And I also feel a little, a little separated, right? I also notice that it's hard to stay conscious. It's hard to stay in awareness, right? It's really easy in our society right now to check out, right? It's easy to start smoking dope and drinking and here, look, if it's not those things, I could watch TV all day or scroll on Instagram all day, or just, it's hard to stay aware, right? I mean, a lot of us really are. I have. I mean, I for most of my life, I've suffered from all kinds of things that have checked me out, right? I'm a recovering alcoholic. I thought alcohol would do it. At first, it did, right? At first, it made me feel great. I could party and have lots of fun, but I kept drinking and it didn't work. I tried drugs. At first, it was fun, and then it got to a point where it didn't work, right? And then I've tried working myself to death. I mean, it was great to make money, but then that was kind of unfulfilling. It's hard to stay conscious in a world full of as much abundance. And I think you're right. If we can become aware, stay conscious as we can, there's nothing we can't do. Now, the question is, how do we stay conscious?
Yeah, that's the question that everybody should be asking themselves, because with all type of distraction, social media, nowadays, it's just easy to get off track. And again, like with us not normalizing mental health and not prioritizing it, not making it time for us to kind of heal past traumas, and also getting in touch with our true self, true nature, and being kind of aligned with our vision, like where we are going. So every one of us, should ask a question: what is it for you in this life? Like, why are you here, right? And what's your purpose? And again, we don't overwhelm ourselves with the big ideas, but at least if we know the direction we should go, we know that what the next step should be, that's where we should focus our energy towards, to not, letting all type of social media or other platforms be a distraction for us. Because again, it's our choice in the end of the day. If we choose to not spend time where it should be spent, that's where we get off track.
You're so right. I know you're spot on, right? The ability to be distracted. I had a hard time ever figuring out really what I'm going to do when I grow up, right? I'm 54 years old. I'll be 55 here in a couple of months. And I've looked back over my life and I'm like, I don't think I've ever known what I want to do when I grow up, right? I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've got 9 different companies that I run. They're all very, very successful, and they've all, it's been a wonderful experience of doing them, but I've never known. Like, I still don't know what I want to do when I retire. Like, I ask my wife all the time, like, are we going to retire around the world? Are we going to retire in an RV? Are we going to get a house somewhere here? And still, I have no idea where that's going to be. But what I'm really more start to figure out is things I don't want to do, right? As I've kind of looked through life, and, some of those past experiences I learned, I started to weed away things that aren't working, and it's not easy, right? Because they all take some practice. Right. A lot of things that I really noticed about my body and myself, those first 48 years of my life, I ran around discovering everything, and it was fun. But then I also got exhausted, and I also realized that there was some stuff that was empty and meaningless. And then I started realizing, to your point, that there was something I needed to do that was greater than just walk around eating pizza and drinking all day. There was probably a little bit more I needed to do with my life. And I still don't know what that is, but I know there's things I don't want to do. Like, I realized that helping others was something that I found amazingly helpful, right? Working on my body in a way that, I couldn't be conscious if I was checked out on drugs or alcohol, or another one, sugar. Like, I couldn't be conscious with a sugar addiction, right? I mean, sugar was probably one of the worst drugs I went through. I couldn't be conscious when or with emotional sobriety, right? There was a whole emotional part of my game that, I could get just as high on anger as I ever did tequila. I used to always laugh at people and say, my emotions are just like a bar, right? Great anger is tequila. I get so mad at you. Right? Gin is a good fight. I start drinking, if I want to fight or argue or be resentful, I could, get angry. Gin would be it. Or good resentments were fine wine, right? A fine wine. I could be mad at you and just really suck it up, and really resentments were really a great one, right? And they were just, and people are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, but emotions can be just as much a checkout as anything else, right? I can use anger, fear, frustration to check me out, and honestly have me even worse off than those drugs and alcohol were, right? Because at least when I was high, there was a couple of times when I was high, I had fun, right? When I'm in anger or fear or frustration, those just grind on my soul, right? So then I had to start looking at, all right, why am I getting angry? Now, part of it is my brain kind of likes to activate that. Now, there's part of me, I was with a great, I'm building a school in India with a great Krishna man. His name is Rupa. And Rupa and I were celebrating my wife and I's 10th anniversary in Greece just a couple of months ago. And we were in the pool, and I was sitting there with him and talking about, some of these emotions that we go through. And, sometimes I feel like my character defects, my anger, my fears, my frustrations, I feel like I play this game of whack-a-mole, right? I fix one, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one. They never quite all go away, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like my anger, those character defects never stop coming, right? And I'm like, Rupa, why? I mean, I work so hard on them. I've got people around me who support me. I do lots of praying and studying. But why? He goes, Anthony, you've been around for billions of lives. That's what's kept you sort of survival. Look, your brain gets up looking for dinosaurs. And if it didn't, you wouldn't be here right now. And yes, you have sexual desires, because if you weren't here, you wouldn't have a family, wouldn't keep continuing. None of us would be here, right? Some of those desires are natural. Some of that stuff's bred into us. Now, how have they overgrown? How have some of those natural characteristics of my being outgrown themselves? And maybe I start looking at how I use them to check out. Like, right, I mean, there's some of that trauma from my past caused some of them, right? Some of them have outgrown because, it was soothing. My mother did a great job of soothing me. She never wanted me to ever feel discomfort. But today as an adult, I realize that maybe that's not okay. Maybe it's okay to be uncomfortable. Maybe I can stand in parts of my life when I try something new. Or in every business I run, I start something new, I feel like an idiot, right? I feel like a newcomer. I feel like a baby. I'm surprised how starting any new business I've ever started, I get this moment of, I feel like a fraud. I wake up, I'm like, I'm going to fail this, right? We grow to different parts, and I wake up and there's a fraud mentality. Some of that came from, that's part of what happens when you grow, right? To grow business, it's just an idea that we expand and organize. And that's all business is. I mean, every business I run, they're the exact same model. I spend all my time with the leaders of those companies, remembering that's all we're doing. Our job is to expand and organize. But what we forget every day is between the two of those is what? Confusing as shit, right? I mean, look, like your podcast, you grow the podcast, you're like, great, I got this podcast, I grow the podcast. Now, how do I get more listeners? Right. So you start to look at, all right, how am I going to do it? I go to Apple, do I go to Spotify? Or what are the platforms? How am I going to do it? How do I advertise? How do I get people out there? How many shows do I do? Organizing it becomes sometimes really complicated, right? That's the hard part about growing any business, any project that we're doing. And the man that I am, who's the guy who organizes that, right? Who I am when I show up to do that work. If I show up with all the, I call it my bag of crap. You ever see Santa Claus? He's got this big red bag of toys that he carries.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And I walk through life with that bag, right? I walk through my life, and I've got this bag of crap that I've carried, stories and traumas and things that I've carried, and they weigh me down, and people wonder why they're lifeless and have no energy, and why they feel like they need to get high all the time or escape. Is that we carry this bag of shame, guilt, fear, resentments that are just overwhelming. And every once in a while, I got to stop, look at the bag, and go, all right, let's take an inventory. What's in there? Oh, here's one. Oh, I carried a story about my mother. My dad died young, and my mother worked at Denny's. Right. Your life would be crap too if your mom worked at Denny's. Right. I carried that as a story. And then one day someone told me, what, didn't you go to private schools? Your mom worked at Denny's, so she sent you to private schools. Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember she paid for those all the way until I was 18 years old. My private schools as a kid, she would send me to them, and she made $25 payments every month for until the time I was like 25 or something. And one day I reframed that and thought to myself, man, my mother was this little immigrant woman who did everything she could to give me everything she had to succeed. And somewhere when I reframed that one, all of a sudden I could look at it and go, huh, maybe when I'm tired, I can remind myself that I owe her something, right? That little woman who fought her ass off for me and my sister to create the lives that we have, maybe I owe her a little bit more effort. And there's one rock I could take out. I could take out the rock that says, there's all kinds of them about business. I don't know what to, here, I'm a terrible speller. And I spell like a third grader. I could use that to check out all the time. Well, I can't be good at business. I can't spell very well. I don't know. So then I took that rock out like, did you ever really try? No. Well, I made it confusing. I checked out on it early in life. Today I read a book a week. My spelling has increased dramatically. I have the ability, and I had never read a book before. I could open that door and go, I had never read a whole book before. Never. My whole life, I'd never read a book until I was 48 years old. I'd never read a whole book. And then one day I was like, I'm going to read a book. And I remember I read it from front to back. It took me, I would read 2 pages and fall asleep. I'd read another page. And then, some days I could get to 2 pages. Sometimes I get to 4 pages. I remember I get to 10 pages. I'm like, oh my God, I get to 10. And one day I get to 50 pages. I read 50 pages on a plane. I'm like, wow. And when I finished that book, it was the first one in my life at 48 I had ever read. And since that day, I've read, dozens and dozens and dozens of books that, you tell me about a book, I can't wait to read it. Because today I use it as my meditation, right? Some people like to meditate. I like to read, right? When I get behind a book and I can go line by line, that's my way of getting my brain to focus, right? I don't do a great job of sitting there going, I do a better job when I get, when I have something to focus on and digest. So there's a lot to that right there that I thought we'd share.
That's very interesting story that you had. And also I've noticed the pattern with a lot of people when they fall into trap into listening those stories on the background as ideas, thoughts that coming in every single day. Every one of us experience that. We'll listen the reasons why we cannot do certain type of activity, starting a business or whatever it might be for every one of us. But there is always a list of excuses why we shouldn't start and why we are going to fail without even trying. So how do we know that it's true? Most of it is just an illusion. And we fall into trap into thinking that it's true and believing that, and not even trying, doing anything about it. And again, if with your story of reading how you thought you couldn't do it and you start small with incremental changes, you increase, and now this is something you really want to do, again, you wouldn't know that until you tried, right? And that was a proof, that was an evidence for you showing that you really can do it, and maybe you're even good at it.
It's amazing how my brain, so I've named my brain, right? He's got a name. I call him Fred, right? Fred in my head, he's kind of a jerk, right? I've got this brain that kind of lies to me. He doesn't want to change. He defends the way that he is. He tells me stories that aren't true. It's better to sit on the couch than go to the gym. You can't do that. Who do you think you are? There's subtle little ways of keeping me where I am that justify the way that I am today. It justifies its ego, right? It justifies its behavior today. And then every once in a while, back when we were tribal, we had elders and they loved you and they could call you out and you trusted them, right? When they said to you, stop, shut up, you're talking nonsense, you believe them. They were elders and they would say, sit down and shut up and do this. And you'd sit down and shut up and do that because you trusted that that your mind was going somewhere, and you trusted them, and you could do that. Well, today we don't have that, right? We don't have that feedback loop. Most of us don't even have friends that are worthy of. They're in trauma, right? It's hard. Hurt other people, right? And it's hard to find those people that we can go to that will guide us and tell us the truth, or be able to see our truth, right? To be able to see that maybe that's all BS story. You know, I can't, I'm not lovable, or I can't do this in business, or I can't read a book, or I don't spell. Those are all stories that I carry. And like you said, I believe that most everything about that, we tell ourselves stories. The best part about being a human is that we create stories. We've created the most abundant stories in the world. And it doesn't matter if they're real or false. We human beings are the best storytellers on the planet. There's nobody better than we have. And our whole society has been built on amazing stories. And most of them aren't even true. I mean, look at religion. I mean, the numbers of forms of religion that are out there. I've studied multiple religions, and I still today think they are 2-year-olds describing algebra. They may have a piece of it, but they're rarely have they caught on to real spiritual nature of a higher power or something that can guide us. Some of it really sounds societal, right? I mean, if you look at religions, they were the first form of artificial intelligence, right? I mean, just imagine you're growing up in the middle of Russia, and you're a farmer, and maybe your whole family's never had a book, right? Now you're a small farmer, going back 300-400 years, and all of a sudden you come into a larger village and they have a church, and they have the word of God. Oh my God, I've been looking for it, right? Because we've always been curious, right? Even when we were farmers, before we had all this stuff, we still were curious. Now all of a sudden someone says, I've got the way. And we jumped into that quickly. And it did. There's parts of religion and church that are wonderful. Look, most of our society is built on some great religious beliefs. They're wonderful. Some of them outgrew themselves also, right? Some of our worst wars and some of our worst judgments came from that same experience. Now, how do we take the good parts? The parts that bring us together in community, the parts that really make us survive well, the things that help us have law and order that make society work. And then how do we get rid of the other parts of the judgment, the part that has me, my religion's better than your religion, right? Look, aren't we all praying to the same God? You may call him God, I may call him Allah, you may call him Muhammad, whatever you call them, they're still God as I see them, right? Now, those same stories rule me, right? I still have the same stories, and some of them aren't true. Some of them are true, but a lot of it is kind of really what happens in my life. There's stuff I had as an upbringing as a child. My mother worked at Denny's, right? And I can make that mean one story, but when I reframe that and go, my mother, she worked at Denny's to make me survive. She did anything. There used to be piles of clothes in my living room when we were little kids, and she would just get $1 per zipper for putting zippers in pants. And there'd be piles of them. My little sister and I would jump from pile to pile to pile. And, some days I'd wake up in the morning, and I'd find her asleep at the sewing machine, right? She'd worked all night long, and her hand still holding a pair of pants. And I was mad when I used to go to school because I had to make my own lunch, right? And I remember, like, that was a resentment I carried in that bag. Like, I was mad. My other kids had peanut butter and jelly. I'd have like a piece of pasta fazool or some lasagna left over. I snuck in a piece of something. I had to kind of scrape it together because my mom was tired. She was trying to sleep for a couple more minutes just to get some more sleep, right? And I had a resentment towards that. And I was maybe even some shame. But then when I reframed that, I looked at it and said, I was able to give my mom a couple more minutes of sleep. And yeah, maybe it was a little awkward, but today I beg for that meal. God, I would have some of my mom's lasagna for lunch every day. I would beg to have that every day today, right? And then some of my stories that I carried, as I look at them, aren't true. And it takes finding someone you can trust. And I've had a team of people around me. For me, it takes a team to run this mind, right? I've got people in my business world who challenge me every day, right? I just went through during COVID, the largest company I own, CDO Group. It's roughly about an $85 to $100 million a year construction company. And we became woman owned, and my wife took over the company, and I stepped back, and that was dramatic, right? Imagine 25 years of me running the company. I got all my significance out of running CDO Group. Hi, I'm Anthony. I'm the owner, president of CDO Group. All my significance was in that, right? This little poor kid who didn't know how to spell very well made this company, and I got a lot of significance out of it. As I tried to change, and we want to evolve the company to be something different. I run the company very much like a Spartan war camp. You come here, we fight hard, we get up every day, And it was very effective. We got to a point and we grew very well, but you look back over the field and you're like, there's a lot of dead bodies back there. There might be an easier way of doing this, right? Maybe another way. And my wife runs a company a whole different way, right? We have families and community, and people stay here long term, and the relationship she builds with our employees and the people that work for us and the vendors we have and the clients that we have are way different, and they're wonderful. She's taken it to another notch, another level up that I couldn't even see. And it took it was hard, right? So we hired a company, and this lady, her name was Lola Wright. She comes in and she's a business coach, and she's tall and she's red haired and she's got big red lips. And she comes in my office one day and she goes, all right, today we're going to lock your door. Well, what? She goes, yeah, today we're going to lock your door. What do you mean, Lola? She goes, yeah, we're going to concentrate. And I go, great. I can concentrate, right? I can a bit of work. No, because I have an open door policy. People come in and out of my office all the time. She goes, no, today we're going to lock you in. I go, what? She goes, yeah, you've hired all these great people, and you and all your significance all day long walk out there and you suck all the oxygen out of the room because you need to be significant and tell them what to do. They're smart. They know exactly what to do. They know. So you're going to stay back here. You get to have 6 meetings a week, 1 hour apiece with these 6 people. And I thought, great, I'm going to write lists, and I'll be able to tell them, Bob, Kevin will do this, and then Vinny will do this, and then Brian will do this, and Brad will do this, and Lisa, she'll do this. I have lists. And since I've had those meetings, I've never wrote one list. We sit down, I get to spend time. Those are leadership people that lead each department. And I spend time understanding them, understanding what they need. They know how to make their own lists. They're geniuses. They're great at what they do. My job is to make sure I support them and their lives and their families and communities, and help them find training and things that they need to be successful. And they know, and they ask for it, right? And that's the beauty of having, I need outside help, right? There was this woman, Carol, one day. She came to me. She said, I got a great story for you, Anthony. And she's a little older. She goes, my granddaughter came in my bedroom, and she was playing in my jewelry box. And she pulls out this clump of necklaces, and she's pulling on them, and they just keep getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And she brings it over to me, and she goes, Grandma, could you help me with these necklaces? I want to wear these necklaces. And Carol says, yeah, I can. And she takes the necklaces and she kind of lays them out on the table. And she realizes, she goes, wait, hold on. I need some outside help. I'm going to go find some outside help. So she goes and she gets a magnifying glass. And she brings the magnifying glass over, and she looks at it really, really close. And she notices that one of the necklaces is really easy to take out. So she kind of pulls it, and she pulls it right out. She gets the first one out. Now, that was kind of easy. And the second one she starts working on, and it's really difficult. She's pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling, but she can't get it out. But she keeps working on it some more. She gets in the magnifying glass. She gets a couple of T-pins, spreads it out, but she finally gets it out. It takes a little bit harder to get on. And the third one was similar, right? They both took a little bit of work. But by the time she got to 4 and 5, they almost fell apart. Well, isn't that like how our business life is? Isn't that what it is? Sometimes I need someone outside of me to look at it. And there's a couple of easy ones we can fix, right? There's some easy ones like, hey, one of my easy ones for me as a leader was some of my behaviors. Like, how do you get financial integrity? How do you act in a business meeting? How do you dress? What are the things that you do to make sure that you're successful? Right? So again, finding someone that can bring some outside help to you, that's a real gift. And to be able to look at it and do some little work on it, you start finding out, once I get through the first couple hard ones, the next ones become real easy.
Oh, that's true. And you definitely need somebody who will challenge you all the time. And again, it's just for your own good. You need to have that, different perspective on what's really like troubling you right now, and what could they help you to go to that next level. And again, with us looking to our past, we need to own everything that we went through, all type of experiences, every type of emotion that we experience. We need to own that, every single one of them, good or bad, because without that, you wouldn't be where you are right now. You wouldn't be the person that you are right now. So again, everything has a flip side of it. Like, you are looking at your mother's story, like how she worked hard for you. And that was very, hard, difficult, but also it has a flip side to it. And she provided for you the opportunity to become that person. So again, with you being grateful for all the lessons that you learned and also owning that and giving yourself permission to kind of like release that resentment, guilt, shame, fear, everything that you hold on to and that limits you to go to that next level. That's where you feel free to kind of, again, like see the life in a different color, feeling alive, having that purpose. And with a team of people that challenge you and help you succeed, also that is something you need to kind of build for yourself as as a part of mutual beneficial type of kind of like surrounding. So you provide them what they need to be successful, and also they are the ones helping you to get where you want to be. So isn't that the ideal situation for all of you? And again, like you being like part of the family and being open and trust in those people, that's where the relationship gets stronger. And again, it helps you to just achieve that type of success for both of you.
Absolutely. The question I always ask people is, how vulnerable are you willing to be? Right? I mean, because it's one thing to say to have a team of people around you, right? But in order for it to really work, you've got to be willing to show them the good, the bad, and you have to show them the ugly, right? That's the hardest thing to figure out, is that, my ego doesn't want me to do that. My ego wants me to show up with you and look good, right? But if I really want to get to the next part where I grow, I have to stand in. Sometimes I don't know, right? Sometimes I feel vulnerable, right? And the question I always ask the leaders that I work with is, how vulnerable are you willing to be? And people ask me, well, I can't do that in front of a team. I can't, if I do that for the team, they'll think I'm weak. I'm like, no, they know you're weak when you don't do it, right? Great leaders are able to be vulnerable. Now, I'm not saying vomit, right? I'm not saying you walk into a team and you vomit on them, but there's a way to be that's with them, that we grow together, and allowing them to support you in those places makes you and the team so much stronger. Like, I've tried for years to do it all myself. If I just work harder, if I just did more, if I just put more time into it, and believe me, there are times where I still jump back into that, right? There are times when I want significance and I'll jump back into it and I'll be like, oh, look at me. I love to pull the S out on my shirt, right? Let me take off my shirt and show you the S on my chest. I'm Superman. I'll go do this stuff. And the truth is, when I'm done with that, I've taken us all backwards, right? Allow the people that go through what they go through. Allow your team members and the people in your life to go through the stuff they're going through. Who am I to tell them they can't go through that, right? Or the stuff that goes there. My job is to work on me. If I work on Anthony, somehow or another, the whole rest of the company gets really well. If I stay conscious, right? And I mean both physically conscious, right? So physically sober, no drugs and alcohol, no sugars, really work on the body, mind, body, and soul, but also emotionally sober. How can I make sure I don't get myself stuck up in fear, anger, resentments, all of those other ones that check me out? How do I stay in a space? Because all those things are my story about what's happening today. Oftentimes I even write it on my hand, and I'll write, how could the opposite of what I'm telling myself be true? Right? When I look at somebody and make up something, 9 times out of 10, whatever I'm mad about for somebody else is usually something I'm projecting onto them, something I'm mad about me that I'm projecting onto them. So a lot of times when I look at that, I say to myself, all right, maybe, just maybe, how could the opposite of what I'm telling myself be true? And maybe they're perfect just the way they are, right? That person that I'm really mad about, maybe that's their experience and what they need to go through. And my job is to figure out, why am I angry about it, right? What's checking me out? Why am I getting all checked out about what's going on over here? Is there something I'm telling myself that's messing that up? So I love this work that you do. It's fun that you tickle our brains, and you tickle our brains with the thoughts you create. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I love doing that as well. And also like showing people how important the mental health is, and that should be a priority for each one of us, because that's kind of the foundation that we have that will then run our life, you know, in the future. And also, it's not something that we fix and we forget. It should be done on a consistent basis all the time. And if you feel this type of emotion, I call them emotional parasites. So if something like is not feeling good, it's unpleasant, it's usually a signal for you to look more deeper into yourself. What is it that's causing you? And all those different interactions with people, you know, especially if they're causing you that type of emotion, they are your best teachers in the moment, because they're showing you what you need to look into. Just be mindful of that, and you know, switch your perspective, the way you look at things, and that will help you to understand yourself better, and as a result, to build a better relationship with others as well.
It's awesome. You know, the work that you do around building ourselves up, you're right. I think that's the most important thing I can do today. You know, there's a great story about you know, a man walks in the woods and he sees a guy kind of cutting down a tree, and he's just sawing his ass off. He's just sawing, and the guy's like just sweating. I'm going. And the guy says, "Hey, what? It looks like your saw's not very sharp." He goes, "I'm too busy. I can't do it right now. I got to cut this tree down." He's like, "Hey, man, if you just stop and sharpen your saw, you'll be a lot more effective." "I can't right now. I got to get this tree cut down. I got to get." Well, there's a lot of times in my life where I act like that. Instead of stopping and sharpening the saw, which is working on myself, right? If I work on myself, I could stop for a moment. What feels like when you're in the middle of you know, life, and life's lifey, right? Life gets real lifey. Like, I can't stop and do this work on myself. I can't take a weekend for self-development. I'm not gonna stop and read a book. I'm just too busy. You start making these stories up about how busy I am, right? Because remember, busy can be a checkout too, right? If I can be so busy that I can check out, right? If I could stop and go, maybe if I read a book today, or maybe I listen to a podcast, or maybe I go to a seminar, right? Maybe those are the things where I sharpen my saw, and then right after that, I go back to sawing the tree. It just becomes a couple really easy strokes, right? Life gets a lot easier when I start to get out of my reptilian brain, and I kind of step back for a second, that protective, fearful mind that sometimes isn't really looking out for my best interest. Right? Sometimes it really blocks and it's fogged, and I don't have clarity. You know, great leaders, great leadership. And this is another great lesson, that great leadership is about one thing only, right? It's about great leadership is about being able to bring solutions to where one didn't exist, right? Great leaders bring solutions to where a solution didn't exist, right? Managers follow processes, right? That's what managers do. But leaders, they bring solutions. And when I say bring solutions, they need to be able to bring solutions from all the billions of ideas in the world. Now, I can't do that if my brain is clogged with all this heavy bag of crap that I'm carrying, the angers, fears, resentments. All of a sudden, you ever hear leaders say, "I don't know what to do"? Well, look, I promise you, you know what to do. In you, you're connected to you, this life that we're living, and all the lives you've ever lived. You have all the knowledge of the world to answer that question. Now, what's blocking it, right? Is it the fears, angers, resentments that we carry? As I start to work on those, right, I start noticing that energy flows, creativity flows. You know, the more work I do on myself, somehow or another, the less work I do, and the more money I have. I don't know how. I don't know how that happens. People are like, "Well, how do you do that?" Well, look, all I know is that the more I work on myself, fears, angers, resentments, all that stuff, character defects, what are the things that don't serve my life anymore? And right, and I have a team of people that help me do that, right? Because I can't do it myself. Remember, I can't do that by myself. I don't have the ability, right? My ego stops me. My storyteller, Fred, he stops me. I need, you know, people in my life, the other leadership people around me, great spiritual minds that I sit with, and they help guide me. And those people that I trust, like, look, they have no vested interest in messing me up. I trust them. And when I let go and let them go there, you know, somehow another life gets a little easier. I don't saw as hard, and things seem to flow a lot more. I bring smarter solutions to the things I'm creating, right? Creativity happens a lot more abundantly, right? I mean, look, there's no lack of creation around here, right? The more we flow, the more it flows. So I think that's a lot of the stuff that helps create a future that's worth living into, right? Today, I find that as we change our focus and help others, work on myself, help others, it seems the money, all the stuff I ever worried about, to feed my family, I don't worry about that anymore. Right? Today I work on Anthony, and the rest seems to take care of itself.
Right. And it comes back to you with us knowing that we are important here. We are significant. We should prioritize our mental, physical health here, today, now, without any type of excuses, because that's what will determine what quality of life you're going to have. And if you're going to achieve that type of, success that you are looking for. But all of the answers are inside of you. If you just allow yourself to release what's blocking you, it will flow in naturally. It will bring you all type of creativity, solution, everything that you're looking for. But are you willing to help yourself? That's the question, And again, it's not just you talking about it, but you have to do something about it. You have to act upon that thought, and everything will just flow in naturally after you do that. And with you being in that mindset, it will open a lot of opportunities for you, and you will see how it's just I would say, if you just let it be the way it is and accept it just how perfect it is right now, you will see more opportunities coming your way, support, people that you meet, and everything is in the plan for you. It's just you have to be out of your own way with all of your baggage, like you said, all of your issues that you had in life. But now it's the time to release all of that. And it's good to feel good. You should feel good all the time. And I don't know why it was always idea in our mind that we have to struggle. It's not true. We don't have to. Again, if you accept that as, like a normal type of feeling that you should have on a daily basis, feeling of joy, love, something that you are passionate about, excitement, that's how you should feel. And that's what, that's your birthright. So this is who you are. And a lot of things are in plan for you. And this just comes back to your self-awareness. Ask yourself today, what are you doing? Is that serving you? How are you feeling? And really get honest with yourself. Don't try to pretend or, kind of mask it, because with all different type of distraction, as we mentioned, plus addictions, a lot of us just check out, but it's time to check in. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we had a great conversation. I hope we will meet again.
Absolutely. I'm so honored to be on your show. The work you're doing is amazing. It just feels so delighted to be here. Thank you. And yes, anytime you'll have me, I'd be happy to be on your show. I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Have a good day.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Stay tuned.